hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We apologize for the slight delay in time of this stream. We had massive technical issues for whatever reason. We're back, though, with a brand new discussion video, and this is going to be a fun one. We're kind of going through a bit of a Star Wars hype, or flutter, I guess. I don't know if it's hype, but it's happening. It happens every now and then with the recent release of The Bad Batch and the recent drink-along that we did on the OG Clone Wars series. We wanted to stay with Star Wars for a bit, and we came up with this idea with all these Star Wars shows coming out that continue to come out. We've got our top 15 list of the Star Wars shows that we want to see on Disney+. So how these lists work, we've got 5 picks each, and in just a second, we're going to go through them all. It'll be like 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, all the way to our number 1 pick. And of course, we're joined once again by Dave. The people wanted more Dave, damn it, after Marvel, and
come on,
people what they want. The people have spoken, and we have delivered. But yeah, before we get into the list properly, over to George with the socials.
Absolutely, guys. So we've had a couple of comments. We'll bring them up. And we want to know your Star Wars show ideas. You know, the sky is the limit. Carl's mentioned Star Wars biomes. I'm going to get to that later. It's not on my list, but that was sensational TV. Chris, you got an amazing commentary of me sending you videos. I'm going to clue what's going on. Yes, if you don't follow us on our social medias, we've had some technical issues. As Chris said, the stream wasn't working. We're on a new YouTube channel. So if you want to find out about when we do have technical issues, hit us up on our socials, which is Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at cinema_savvy, letterbox.com, and of course we have a link to TeePublic in that description below. I'm very excited today. It's been a very interesting Star Wars week because on Star Wars Day we were talking Goldfinger, so go check out our James Bond videos. That we're having good fun with them, and it is very weird to do like 2 stars videos in a week that's not May the 4th, but May the 4th week. But maybe we've already got plans for May the 4th, 2022. Who knows? It's a long way away. But we're always playing. But we've got a couple of people in the comments. We've got Jex. We've got Carl. Carl, love the new logo. Thank you. You know, we've got a Marvel logo. We've got a Bond logo. Really, we need a logo for the greatest. Yeah. So it was natural that this was going to happen. And we've got another color scheme. We've got a red one. So that's on our Twitter feed. Go have a look at that. But I'm very excited. We'll bring up some of your guys' picks across the show. So I say once the 3 of us get our first ones in each, we'll bring up yours or any of your own. So do comment on people. We'll bring them up. We'll phase them out as well. But this is very exciting. This is very different to what we've done. I don't know the last time we had a Star Wars discussion that wasn't Mando. I don't think we did Clone Wars either. So I think maybe the quiz back in July. I don't know if that counts. But I
will say we've done a lot of Star Wars content, haven't we, over the years? And, you know, we used to do Star Wars months when we had a new release coming out. And I feel like just when we think we've mined everything that we can from Star Wars, we always manage to think of a different idea. So we're carrying on kicking and screaming with more Star Wars content. But I actually want to pass this over to you, Dave. And I guess this is a question for all of us before we get into the list. How easy was this list to put together in terms of all these Star Wars shows? Did it take you a while to think of them, or was it just very natural? These were just all from the heart. These are ones that you've always wanted to see.
No, I think it was. It would have been easier probably before the massive announcements that came out from Disney last time. They said, and these are our upcoming programs we're thinking of, because that took about 4 off my list. I was like, oh, all right then. So I need to go with something a bit different. So actually, I did find it a bit tricky thinking of something that I'd really like to see, but I think I came up with some things that might work, some things that won't, but certainly one of my choices is something I really would like, and we'll get into that a bit later, but something I think that is needed for the series, but we'll see where we get to. But yeah, a bit of a tough one.
It's a very varied list, I will say that. I know everything that's coming up, so it has been spoilt for me, unfortunately, but yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
I'm going to say I love this because I got your guys' list first. So the first job was like, right, there's 10 gone. 3 of them are mine. So now I get free reign of some wild picks. So, you know, we did collate first. We don't want to have 15 and actually give you 12. There'll be a lot. I think a lot of us probably actually want to see a lot of everyone else's, which is going to be really interesting. But that being said, the less we hype them up, I think we need to get into it. We'll do the normal clockwise rotation. We'll have Chris up first, followed by me, then Dave. So, Chris, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about your first one.
Okay, so my number 5 pick, in ascending order, I have Kylo and the Knights of Ren. And yes, you can probably call the TV show that, or Ben and the Knights of Ren, if you want to get a bit of rhyming in there. I've kind of approached all of these picks with the idea of, we've got the saga, we've got the spin-off films. What shows could come out that could bolster and reinforce what we've already had come out before? Kind of really what the Clone Wars TV series did, right, with the prequel trilogy, how it completely revamps the prequels and adds so much character and context to everything. You go back to the prequels and it just completely reworks them. And I've kind of wanted to do that. And I was thinking, which areas of the saga are significantly lacking. And I think, I mean, all eyes can just point immediately to episode 9, right? So I'm going with the low-hanging fruit first with this one, maybe. The Knights of Ren was such a fascinating character concept all the way from episode 7, and I'm not going to harp on it too much, but we all know that they weren't treated with the greatest respect in episode 9, barely getting, 2 scenes, if any dialogue. I don't think they say anything at all, to be honest, and they're taken out completely easily. Of course, we don't get them in episode 8 as well, so that really didn't help the trajectory of these cast of characters. And also, Kylo Ren, I think like the most interesting stuff from the sequels is the stuff that sadly we kind of didn't get to see, and we might get like little glimpses of flashbacks in The Last Jedi when we see Ben having been corrupted by Snoke already and becoming the leader of the Knights of Ren. Now, I know the Knights of Ren have been in various comic books. I haven't read them. I was always under the impression that they were the other students of Luke Skywalker. I think now they're like an Assassin's Creed kind of characters. They sort of look up to the Ren, who has the title of Ren, who leads them as a sort of a warrior force. Just get a whole series dedicated to them. Give them personalities. Let's see all the different fighting styles that they have. And also, you'd be getting more Kylo in there. Now, I don't think that Adam Driver would come back for it. You know, his career is taking off. He's got many, probably Academy Award nominated films coming out next year, just to name a few. But I think you could do this in animation. I think it'd be really interesting in animation. You could go more into Snoke as well, make it a Snoke backstory. You could see Kylo Ren being trained, and you could see him sort of like rising above the ranks to become Kylo Ren, and also get more character insight into what had potential to be a great cast of characters, but unfortunately, as things turned out, weren't all that. And then you can go back to episode 9, having seen the series, and maybe it might influence it a little bit differently. So that's my number 5 pick.
I'm with agreement with you, because I'm not going to bring up 8 because I love it, but I remember when 8 came out, Ryan Johnson said, and I think in the Empire Spoiler podcast, his first spoilers for Getting Home, if I brought back the Knights of Ren, I was only bringing them back to kill them in the Praetorian Guard scene. So I thought I'll let JJ have it as his creation. And when he said that, I thought, fair play. You've left respect in for the guy that created them. You don't want to use them, but you won't kill them. So you're going to hand it over because JJ's come out for 9. And then in 9, they did nothing. Nothing. So I always think back to that, saying I'm not going to get into a conversation about 9, but that was very much the director intentionally left them for someone to tell a story with them, and there was no story told. And I think that is a big gape on when you look at episode 7 and how, you know, Master of the Knights of Ren, all this amazing stuff. And there was that comic book series. The last comics I read actually for Star Wars was when 9 came out. It was like, here is how Kylo joined, you know, fell. And I was like, this is pathetic. And I know it's got its fans, but we need something more, because there's a very interesting era. And you are right. I mean, obviously I'm an Adam Driver hype lord, or whatever you want to call it, but he wouldn't come back. But maybe he would for an animated thing. You know, maybe they say, listen, Adam, a day's work, please. Maybe they can call in some favors, but there's potential to be had, and I think these guys need it.
As long as the opening scene, whatever the theme song is, and the Benny and the Jets thing, I think has come up a few times to go with the Knights of Ren, would work awesome. As long as the final shot of that trailer is them all stood on that rock on episode 9, just looking out like something they are going to do something. Apparently, they just like watching stuff, because that was literally kind of all they did. Look around. Oh, all right then. Literally, there were such wasted characters, and you're right. They were given. That they were saying about the hype train for Star Wars at the beginning. They were so given these characters like, look, this is Kylo Ren, and these are his Knights of Ren, and you got kind of that flash forward or flashback in Force Awakens where you saw him standing with all the guys and all those dead Padawan around, and you just thought, you know what, this could be really epic. And then you got nothing, absolutely nothing. So they are characters that are there, and they are rife for retelling on Disney Plus. So just a missed opportunity, I think, is what those characters are.
Definitely. Before we move on to the next one, just a couple of messages here from JX. He knows the comic books way more than I do. He says the Knights of Ren apparently is older than the events of The Phantom Menace. Maybe bring Ben in later, even if it's the end of the pilot. I guess you could go into new territory if you want to do that, but I'm talking about like the main cast of ones that you see in episode 9. And originally he was saving them for Trevorrow. I actually can't remember if Trevorrow did do anything in his draft for Duel of the Fates with the Knights of Ren. I think they had more to do, maybe not loads to do, but a little bit more than what ultimately JJ gave us or didn't give us, really. So yeah, that's my number 5 pick.
Definitely. I'm gonna head into my number 5 now with something I think could really be a thing. We need an Inferno Squadron live action series is the big key here. So, as many people know, I adore Battlefront 2, both Battlefront 2s, but the newer one is to me the best Star Wars game ever made. And one of the things that really disappointed was the storyline. And a lot of things disappointed on launch, but they spent 9 months marketing a game where it's like, you play as the stormtroopers, you play as the villains. This is Inferno Squadron. We've got these actors who have done motion capture, like Javina, I can't pronounce the name, like Gakar or something, and you've got the guy from Arrow in it, and it was really interesting. And I remember the day that came out, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. We're going to do the Battle of Endor as the villains. And half an hour later, it's like, oh no, we're now the good guys, and we're now fighting stormtroopers, and then are friends with Leia, Luke, and Han, and they're all pals. And I was like, this is so disappointing. And I think this could, I think because they have actors, playing their age, not fake voices, not fake sort of dialogue and everything. These guys in live action series, as the villains at the Battle of Endor. Yeah, it's the Battle of Endor. But I think there's potential for a series, and not to get into too much what I want and what could be great, but this is an easy multi-series thing. You could have them eventually transition to the good guys, but not half an hour in. Thank you very much. Like, I need more than one level as them, and I think the way Battlefront 2's come on over the last few years, its resurgence and its respect it's gained. If someone said these guys are going to pop up in another game or property, I think a lot of people would be interested. And I know you've seen the thumbnail in our video. She, I think, I don't know if it was Celebration or what's it called? E3, Gamescom, one of the big ones. She dressed up in the armor and she looked the piece and she could do it. And there were rumors last year about them maybe motion capping for another game in the future or something. But I would love a series. And I know we've had a lot of original trilogy content, but just the other side, seeing it from the villains view and actually getting them to do villainous stuff, I think would be amazing to see.
I love the story of Battlefront 2, actually. I distinctly remember it. It's one of the few games that I've actually watched as, how like someone will take all the cutscenes and a bit of gameplay and sort of package it as like a 3-hour movie on YouTube. And I watched the whole thing and I loved it. And it felt like a brand new Star Wars film to me. I did love all the cameos. I think the scariest thing in the game, though, was Han Solo's mustache. I think it's that game, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know why someone messed up with the character model on that one and just decided to leave it in like the day before release or something. That was strange. I don't understand that. But I actually love the plot. And I think, you're probably right. If they did, I wasn't really sort of aware of all the marketing. If they were saying you get to play as the villains finally, if they were kind of banking everything on that. And I know games tend to do that, thinking of the Arkham games where it's, Black Mask will be the main villain. And then 20 minutes in, it's the Joker again. So I know that game companies do that, but I wasn't aware of the marketing for this game in particular. I love the opening on Endor, and you see that change of perspective where you see the Death Star blow up in the sky. Loved all of that stuff. I loved going back to Jakku, and it kind of did give me sort of like, it did reframe things for Episode 7, ultimately knowing where it was lead to, seeing Jakku and seeing those crashed Star Destroyers there, and now having context of this battle that happened before. I actually thought it was a really good way that they handled the Emperor coming back as well on that kind of droid, and it was a pre-recorded message. That's fine. They didn't bring him back properly at that point. But no, I think there's a lot of potential there, definitely. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the ending was quite anticlimactic, though, and then I think they brought out some DLC. Classic EA there. But no, I really like this idea, and I think a TV show would probably be a better vehicle for it as well. You just get to develop the characters a lot more, because I do think that was probably the area that lacked the most in the game. It was that I just didn't really care about the main cast of characters.
I think it's exactly that. I think you've got that, like Chris said, when you watched it over like on a YouTube video of all these videos put together, I would very much build that series around that same story. But like you said, but pad that out, like really have offshoots of that story of where the characters are going around that, rather than just obviously what's in the game, which isn't very much. You could have so much more before they turn. I mean, you could still have the turn in there, but you could have that over like a 4 or 5 episode arc. So like a couple of hours of storytelling before you had that turn. I think it's really interesting them seeing the Death Star blow up, and that whole, it's only a few seconds in the game where they kind of like so destroyed it, like seeing the Death Star go up again. It's just, I think it's really good. And I love, like Chris said, I love the Emperor, the way they have that projection thing that is there as a, if I'm going to die, I've got this recording here and this is what my orders are. So I think there's so much more story to tell just around the game. And I'd like to see, if I were going to do that, just to build around the game, do the whole thing, same actors, but you could actually project that, because there are a lot of people out there who won't play the games as well. Like, especially some people might get them just for online stuff, and some people get into them, aren't very good at the game, so stop, so don't play the whole thing. So I think there's a big potential for it.
Yeah, I think as well, going off what you said, you could imagine like the opening, like big, like how Game of Thrones, you get the big end of episode 3, and every season, episode 3 had a big ending. Could you just imagine like just the Death Star just blowing up on the horizon? And we'd know because we know Star Wars, but there'll be people that might not know that the importance of it. An amazing comment from JX is first trailer, what are our orders? We avenge our empire, actual game for the Republic. That was exactly how it went. And I do enjoy the story. I did like the story. I was just, from what they might, it was so quick. I think you'd assume they'd turn good, but like three levels in was so strange. But you could see this is a multi-series thing, live action, that era, sort of. I guess it's even pre-Mandalorian. It ends at the Battle of Jakku, which is 1 year later. So there's a lot of potential there, and maybe we'll get him in another game. Who knows? But certainly that's one I was really thinking. I was like, I'd actually love to see this.
I think that'll take me on to my number 5 choice, and which I'm going to actually reclaim a title that's already out there in the Star Wars universe. We're claiming back Star Wars Resistance. We're going to take it and we are going to make it an actual show that has some merit and not just 1 or 2 good episodes. So the idea of this is, again, it's going to be an animated series. You kind of got to go back on my thoughts on this. When I saw the prequels, they were fine when I first saw them, but they certainly weren't my Star Wars ones. I'd seen Revenge of the Sith. I was kind of like, I'm done with Star Wars now. That's absolutely fine. And then the Clone Wars came out, and my word, was I back in. The movie wasn't great, yes, when they brought it out, but the actual series itself reignited Star Wars for me to where my love of the prequels now is very much not based off the movies now. It's based on the Clone Wars building out the characters that we had and that surrounding and building this entire world around that. Like Anakin's demise in the Clone Wars, the 3 movies, is a very quick process. The build-up of Anakin's character over those 7 seasons that we got, absolutely phenomenal. What I'd like to see for Resistance, I'd like to see something set between 8 and 9. And when I say between 8 and 9, you have to kind of look, I think there's only a year gap between the 2 movies. So you may have to sort of play somewhere in 8 through 9. But to build on the story time that we should have really had with these characters, Rey, Poe, Finn, Rose, you've got a massive cast of characters who, in bits and pieces, are really good, but just in no way, shape, or form given enough life or not fleshed out enough. There's just not enough story given to where we should feel something. Also, yes, we could actually, the Emperor scene in episode 9 or the actual Return of the Emperor doesn't have to be in the crawl and then in one line from Poe saying, oh, he's back. You need more. And I just think, yes, they're doing it in the comics and things, but I think a animated series throughout that time period is something that would be much heavier for people, and I think could reignite people's love for the prequel series the same way it ignited my enjoyment of the prequels. I just think it's something that would be really, really well received. Eventually.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. And I think that's one of the big things. I don't want to harp on 9 constantly, but it's going to happen in a Star Wars discussion. But where you finally have like your entire ensemble cast of characters together again, you kind of remind yourself that this is the first time that Poe has like interacted with Rey and Finn, and they're trying to spin it and like in the dialogue give them all this camaraderie, and they're all bickering with each other, and it doesn't feel earned at all. It just comes out of nowhere. The middle film, we didn't really see them all together. They were all very much separate for the most part of the film. And we saw seeds of it with Force Awakens. Finn and Rey were great together in that film, and you wanted to see more of that dynamic develop as the series went on. And then at the end, they, have this big emotional embrace, and you just don't feel that. Like, as an audience member, you just don't feel like you've reached that point with those characters, and you should. So, yeah, absolutely. Although it's a very short time span, I think you could maybe do it set over like a bunch of months, so you could still get seasons out of it maybe and just have like separate adventures, and just sort of like bolster these characters together so that when you get to 9, you've had sort of like a almost extended deleted scene really in between the two to pack it. So I think that'd be a great idea. I think it'd do wonders for episode 9, I think, but then again, you could do anything really and help to pad out episode 9. I promise that's the last thing I'm going to say about episode 9. I'm not going to turn it into episode 9 slag off.
My number 1 choice was an episode 9 remake. I'm joking.
No. Yeah, that works too.
I've seen a script online.
Trevorrow, get Trevorrow back on speed dial. We've still got his number.
No, what I was going to say is that I think that's one of the best ones because you nabbed this from me. Sorry to jump in.
Sorry.
No, it's incredible. No, because one of us was going to have it right. If we said you look at Star Wars, and I've not been there yet. I should be going next year, and the whole theme park is set like in canon, not you just turn up. There is a definitive time period setting. It's between 8 and 9 that Kylo and Rey run out and stuff and have moments. And I think Rise of the Resistance ride is also a canon story where they got the actors in, and that's set between 8 and 9. I'm just kind of sitting saying they could really like fit in. Like they make out there's been a war for over a year, and we don't know anything. And someone mentioned earlier, you know, you can have the Emperor speak things. Don't just imagine that as like the sort of penultimate episode. Imagine the finale of, you know, Kylo Ren approaching Mustafar so that people can bloody know that he was on Mustafar. That's the last time I'm going to bring that one up because that still aggravates me. But it's so interesting, and I think it'd be very shocked if they didn't look at exploring that over the next years. And I don't mean just comics and books either. I think there's some really interesting stuff that I think people do. And also, it just gives people chances that, you know, one of the big things people wanted more of, they wanted to see more of Rose so she could get a character and things like that. But it was like, oh, she got more screen time. She got like a minute, and it was all side spot. I was like, you know, I can imagine Kelly Marie Tran coming in like, hey, you might get an arc or you might get something, but you'll get character development. And you could say the same. It'd be a lot harder, I think, to bring in the big names, but you can imagine them saying to John Berg, like, hey, we really want to try and do things differently. Would you be up for a day or two of animated stuff? And it might be very hard to do it, but I'm sure they get some talented voice actors. But I think something in that period, because the hardest thing is that because 7 and 8 are essentially back to back, you know, really they could be episode 7 combined. It's a cliffhanger ending. You look at episodes like there's only a 1 year period. You know, look at the gaps between 4 and 5. There's 3 years, 5 and 6. There's 1 year. There's so much stuff that went on. Whereas this one, you can only really go into that 1 year, and I'd love to see what they would try and do with it.
I guess I'll move on to my number 4 pick. So I think most of my other ones now, apart from one, are going to be animated shows, just because it is that case, what we just mentioned, of getting actors back into the fray. And certainly I don't think you're going to be able to get one of these actors back. So it's going to be an animated Jedi Council series, specifically about Count Dooku, Cypher Dyas, and Qui-Gon Jinn. This is sort of one of the biggest, well, I won't say unanswered, because I know that there's apparently a great story arc on Clone Wars, which I haven't got to yet, which kind of goes a little bit into Cypher Dyas. I don't know if they fully explained the whole thing. I still remember, oh God, I don't even know how old I was now when Attack of the Clones first came out, and they talking about Cypher Dyas, and Obi-Wan says, oh, I'm sorry, Master Cypher Dyas was killed almost 10 years ago. And my brain was thinking, is Cypher Dyas Qui-Gon Jinn? And yeah, and I always merged the two, and it was very confusing to me, and the film doesn't really go all that much into Cypher Dyas. I know there was apparently like a great deleted scene set in the Library of Records at the Jedi Temple where I've forgotten her name. Jocasta, is that her name? She approaches Obi-Wan, and he's looking at a statue of, I think it's Qui-Gon, and she kind of reminisces, saying that Qui-Gon, Cypher Dyas, and Dooku, they were all idealists. They were kind of against the grain, and, you know, they were part of the Jedi Council, yes, but they were kind of breaking away from it a little bit. And we see elements of that in Qui-Gon's performance and his character in Phantom Menace. And I want to explore more of that. I think you get flashbacks in the Clone Wars, but I think an animated series sort of detailing that friendships, that sort of like triumvirate of those characters, would be incredible. We know that Liam Neeson did provide his voice for the Clone Wars, so maybe there is a chance that he could come back. I want to say the name is Corey Burton. He does a lot of sort of Christopher Lee style voiceovers. I think obviously he was the voice actor in Clone Wars as well. Bring him back and just let's see more of this. And also it's an opportunity to bring the other council members back into it as well. That's easily one of my favorite things in the Clone Wars, that we actually get voices and personalities to all these characters that we see in the prequel films that don't say a single line of dialogue or barely any. Bring them into it too. Just have it set in the Jedi Council. I don't know what the story would be. I don't know what the missions would be, but I think that it would help clarify some of those sort of loose threads maybe, or things that aren't exactly 100% clear if you're just watching all of the saga films together.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one thing I'd say with Clone Wars, which this is something I love about Clone Wars, I don't mean it as an insult, it really shows how bad the Jedi were, like how arrogant they were, selfish, up themselves, which was a really interesting spin for the Anakin side of things. But if we could get like pre-Clone War stuff, you know, where these guys were noble knights, I know it sounds really cheesy, but, you know, why and how were they Jedi? I'd love stuff like that. Granted, there probably wasn't much to do with that war and stuff, but there's so much interesting things. I know they did that Dooku audio drama thing, which was meant to be really good. And I think they're going to do more of them because it only actually covered a little bit compared to what people thought. But I would love to see sort of, you know, him and Qui-Gon back in the day. Maybe not training, but just those two in conversation with each other. And there'd be so many interesting ideologies. And of course, you could hint at things things to come. But I think there's potential, and I think the Jedi Council, we know in Clone Wars, they're arrogant. We know that, and when something drills it in so much, like, let's show us another side of that, so we can catch their arrogance, not as obviously.
I just think it would be an amazing thing to see both a young Qui-Gon, a young Dooku, just out there having adventures, like Neeson full-on Taken style, but as Qui-Gon, with an awesomely young Christopher Lee, just Christopher Lee being generally amazing. I just think there's so much potential in their story, their background, that why Count Dooku said in Attack of the Clones, why Qui-Gon would have been first to join him in the Separatists had he still been alive. It leaves so much unanswered to say, well, would he have just stepped away? And you look at it and think, you know what, he probably would have in a blink of an eye gone, yeah, that's where it's going on. Don't listen to these guys. They know nothing. The master for no reason. I just think it's a lot of potential behind that. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that scene from Attack of the Clones as well, because when Christopher Lee's just monologuing about all this lore and stuff that I'm just hanging on his every word. I want to know more about that stuff. So I don't think they're never going to do it, but I would love to see it anyway, or even just get some more clarification to some of those characters. But that's number 4 pick.
Definitely. So my number 4 pick, I'm bringing out the big guns here, guys. It's time to start winning Emmys, winning awards, Golden Globes. This is, of course, the Director Orson Krennic miniseries. Look at that photo that wasn't in the main film. This is going to be the best Star Wars drama ever made. I'm sorry. I won't bring up Kevin Spacey's name more than this now, but this is going to be the House of Cards, but for Star Wars. This is going to be about this one man's political reign, and someone's going to comment, "What? They did a book. They did a book set across the Clone Wars episode 4," and I was like, "Damn right, they made a book." And I stopped reading it after the first chapter or two and not that I was bored, but I really was not in the mindset to read a book. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see Ben Mendelsohn saying he's not reading these lines, and I just sat there saying, imagine he has a rise to power. That one thing I remember from the opening chapters was that I think it starts during the Clone Wars. Like, he is like the back row of a big meeting with the Chancellor and all these big names. I don't think it's the Senate, but all the probably corrupt people. And is that his goal was to get to the front, to be as close to the Emperor as possible, the same way that Tarkin was. And obviously we get the amazing Tarkin scenes in obviously Rogue One. And I'm not saying we need to bring back that CGI stuff. I'm not opposed to it, but that's dependent on the role. But could you imagine a 3-4 series episodic thing set across 3 and 4, where we're filling in these gaps of benefit? Bring in Mads Mikkelsen, he's doing Fantastic Beasts. He'll definitely do Star Wars again. He's been in everything. Let's give him some more time, and we can go as far as to maybe not get Ian McDermott to be this looming shadow, but I need this really deep, dramatic, political series, which loads of people will hate, but it's going to be such good TV. I want to see Ben Mendelsohn exposing people and having them killed to ascend to the throne, and get as Goodfellas, Sopranos, whatever you want. This is going to be incredible. And straight, I'm going to tell you how it ends. Season 2 ends with him getting his first 2 Death Troopers as bodyguards, and it would be the most incredible ending. But this is it. This is the best Star Wars could ever be. An actual drama series. I've never seen The West Wing. Maybe it'll be more like that, but we need it. And also, who on earth is going to complain about more Ben Mendelsohn?
I'm here for every second of this show. I am. Easily Krennic's in my top 3 Star Wars characters of all time. You could have flashbacks to when he first gets drafted into the Empire and what he really wants out of it. You could go into his backstory. You could go absolutely nuts with this thing. But I love the idea of it being sort of like this political thriller, drama, whatever you want to call it, just sort of working his way up the ranks, which we see, and we know that he does that in Rogue One, or at least attempts to do that in Rogue One. I'm here for every second of this. Ben Mendelsohn, absolute international treasure. He's incredible. And yeah, I mean, if you hadn't picked this, George, I would have probably threw it in my top 5 easily. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about Mads Mikkelsen as well, because I was remembering back to those. I think you only get one glimpse of it in the actual final film, where he's sharing drinks with, he goes to Mads Mikkelsen. They're clearly good friends. And we know there's probably a whole bunch more Ben Mendelsohn that's been left on the cutting room floor, even after seeing those original trailers to Rogue One. So throw that footage in there if it works, or repurpose that footage. But yeah, 100% I want to see this show.
Yeah, just West Wing with Krennic is all we need for that to be absolute perfection. And it has to start. Again, I'm thinking of start. The noise from Rogue One, when Rogue One started, and that big beat of music with just Krennic on the screen, and not my microphone over. Krennic! That would be amazing. But yeah, just as I say, as a political drama, watching him try and rise up throughout the Empire, just going crazy at people stealing his ideas, and amazing. He would eat the scenery alive. It would be absolutely incredible.
There's so much potential. There's 20 years to fill. They could even do it if like The Crown, if they really wanted to. One thing Christian mentioned, he's an international treasure. Imagine if you're Australian. Your national treasure is Ben Mendelsohn. Unfortunately, our royal family's got Prince Andrew in, but theirs is Ben Mendelsohn and many other people. So it's it's one of them where I'm here for it, and any more Ben Mendelsohn in anything, I will follow. And he's already won an Emmy before for that great Netflix series, which had one good season. Watch season 1. I think it was Blood something. I've already forgotten, but watch it for him, nothing else. But yeah.
We have a comment from JX. You did mention this, but I think he's a little bit behind. He says there is a book that pretty much covers all this. Well, then I guess this show's going to win an Emmy for Best Adapted Screenplay then, because just base it off the book, as you mentioned at the beginning. Case closed. What
I will say, to add on to it, I don't think, this is good. I'd end this further down. So one thing that Bad Batch has done, I won't say it, Dave, you'll know what this is, it has adjusted a comic book about Kanan. They altered the Order 66 moment. What I will also add to that is that they did this for The Mandalorian with, oh my God, have I forgotten his name? Chapter 9. Have I forgotten his name? Absolutely love him. The one from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Boba Fett.
Walter Goggins?
No, it's I've forgotten his name. This is going to annoy me, but basically the whole story.
Timothy Oliphant.
That's the one. Timothy Oliphant.
I always get those. Wrong Tarantino movie.
It's What's great with that is that they took stuff that worked in the books, in the comics, and they adjust it to work better in live action, in animation, in a feature film that's going to be watched, not designed to be read or sort of looked at in panels. And I think you could take notes from that Krennic book, but we want an outright incredible political drama and multi-season as well, and this can cover it. And also would get the origin of the Krennic mobile, one of our channel's favourite moments.
Oh, the credit reveal. So yeah, that would take me on to my next choice. And while I can see in the comments it's already been mentioned, so I might as well bring it up now. So Carl has literally just put inside the comments that he would choose 1313, the Dark Underworld of Coruscant. So my next choice is 1313, the Dark Underworld of Coruscant. But like a full-on for this live action, like a crime thriller, or like a not SUV, that's a car. Those American series, like Law and Order type of things, but set inside that base world of Coruscant. Nothing to do with the top levels, nothing to do with the Jedi, anything like that. Just the real scum and awfulness that we kind of got hinted at in the Clone Wars when Ahsoka went down for a little bit, and it was a little bit dirty, but not too bad. But like the real dirt of Coruscant, or like what's going on in that world where there's no real law underneath those top levels, where they don't deal with the Jedi or the troopers or the Empire, nothing like that. It has any law there, and I'd love to see, like I say, like a full-on, really dark crime series, fully not PG, like a full-on Sopranos-y style, dirty, awful crime series.
Yeah, and I remember when I think this game actually got quite far in production. I remember gameplay being released for this thing, not just the concept art, like a lot was released for this game. And as far as I can remember, like everyone was down for this game. Like the concept alone, just the criminal underbelly of Coruscant, as you mentioned, we've seen glimpses of it, but we were finally going to get to live in it. And I can imagine, hopefully it would work a lot better than this game, but sort of like cyberpunk kind of feel to it. I can imagine it being very much like that, like a Blade Runner-esque maybe quality to the game. And then it was just like overnight, it was just shut down, canned for whatever reason. Was that part of the acquisition? Was it when Disney took over? So I know I think this has still been heavily rumored. It's always that name 1313 that you keep seeing floating around out there. So I definitely think there's a future for this product at this point, whether it's going to be a TV show or whether they're going to sort of reimagine the game and get it out on new consoles. I don't think we've seen the last of 1313. I definitely think it's going to come back in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, it's interesting one. I think this was probably I don't want to say it's horribly, the biggest casualty of the takeover. That, when they bought them out, there was so many legalities that obviously Clone Wars was cancelled because it was on a Cartoon Network contract and Disney couldn't make the Cartoon Network stuff and they had to wait for the rights to expire. And I think 1313 was the big one. I remember footage at E3, and had they not told everyone you were playing as Boba Fett? Like, I think after it was cancelled,
that was the final reveal. Yeah, it was going to be Boba Fett you were playing as.
Yeah, and it was kind of like that's probably heart wrenching, not just for all the staff that would lost their jobs, but I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have wanted to. But you can understand why at the time that a decision like that had to be made. But there's potentially. I think Carl put a great comment about the fact you can use the volume now. I think that goes without saying for all of these. Sorry,
there we go.
Any Star Wars show, I think the volume. I've said the same time, so many videos. This is changing not just cinema but TV now. This is going to make the unaffordable productions affordable. For you can't go to Coruscant and film on set. We know you can't, but this is what was envisioned, and I think this is the game changer moving forward. That any show, any film can use this technology. Anything we pitch live action, I think, considering how good Episode 9 was of The Mandalorian, how great that looked, and the fact that Chris had almost a little.
I thought that sentence was going somewhere else. Then, like, what? What are you talking about?
In the last few minutes, I've changed my opinion entirely.
It's just, I bet if you had side by side with 4 and 9, yes, obviously, it's so sorry. I keep saying 9 like film. It's chapter 9, isn't it? I'm getting used to the chapters again. It's been a while, but that technology is there. It's there to stay. I think that's the big thing. It's there saying, hey, you can build sets. They're building sets on Kenobi now. And the people have seen live action Banthas there and stuff. So doesn't mean you get to drop it, or you just get to mix that environment CGI with live action, which is the goal. But I'd be down with this. And I think the little tidbits we get in Clone Wars, like they occasionally popped up to 1313. It was like, I like this underworld. I'd like to see more, please. And I reckon if Lucas was in charge, the famous Star Wars soap opera they were going to call it, weren't they? Like where it was going to be like an unlimited budget for live action. I think this would have been something he'd have loved to have covered.
I seem to remember something being released, and I was under the impression at the time it was like an official Lucasfilm release or like some footage that George Lucas had thrown together, but it might have been like a sort of, not like a student film type thing, but like a fan project. I remember like a 2-minute short coming out, and it was set on Coruscant, and it had stormtroopers in it. I think it had like sort of a group of people trying to fight back against them. I very vaguely remember seeing that on Twitter or something at the time. I'm not sure if anything ever came of that, if that was an official thing. I might be completely remembering that wrong, but if anyone else remembers it, do comment. Swear to God, I remember seeing that.
No, I think about a year or 2 ago, there was some footage, and everyone said it was from the Lucas series, but I think it was eventually proven as false.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It looked so real. No one knew for ages.
Like the effects weren't polished in it, and it looked very sort of like previs in a lot of scenes. So it did look official at the time, or at least like a kind of B-roll thing. But yeah, I'd be down for more Coruscant stuff. Takes me on to my third pick, going back into the Rogue One world with this one. This is going to be a Jyn Erso and Saw Gerrera series. Once again, we know that there's tons of footage that they removed that was in the original trailer. And even, I love Rogue One as a film, but the first act does feel very choppy, and you can clearly tell that that's probably where they just hacked to pieces in the editing suite for it. Jyn Erso as a character, and really kind of like the entire cast, all kind of have like a motif about them, like a quirk, but they don't really ever feel like fully fleshed out characters. And I think that was a missed opportunity, because I think Felicity Jones, isn't it, the name of the actress? I think she's great, and from what she was given, I thought she handled it well. I just don't think she was given enough. And it's very difficult to sort of get on board with a character, because it feels like they kind of cut out all of her development in between films. It's kind of like how Anakin, young Jake Lloyd Anakin, and then all of a sudden you skip 10 years and you miss out the whole part where he's got that character depth there. So I want a series where you see her being trained up. You see her under the tutelage of Saw Gerrera, and even in the case of Saw Gerrera, you could see how more unhinged he gets over the progression of the series to become the completely mad lunatic that we see in the film that he is. Maybe we can see how he acquired the Borg gullet. The possibilities are endless with this show. But and again, sort of going back to sort of how I was coming up with the ideas for these shows, is that I want these shows to sort of function as a way to embellish what we've already seen in the films. If you do have, even if it's just 1 series, 2 series, however many series you want to do with Jyn Erso, because she kind of gets into the custody of Saw Gerrera at a very young age, compared to how we see her when they do the time skip. I can't remember how many years it does skip ahead, but there's a lot to dive in there, and really great character stuff you could go into. The rise of that empire as well, continuing. Like, they haven't built the Death Star at that point, but you could see more of their sort of like initial takeover before they bring out all the big firepower and everything. And I think this would do wonders. Like we're getting the Cassian series as well. I think this would go hand in hand with that and start to really develop these characters more. Get a bunch of series to Felicity Jones's character. By the time I go back to Rogue One, I'm going to have a completely different take on her character. So this would be one that I'd really like to see.
Yeah, I think with that you've got a stone, but that's a stone winner. It's so important. I think Rogue One, of the Disney era, my favorite and best has been Last Jedi, but Rogue One to me was almost the pinnacle. That was a certain element for the older fans that grew up with the originals. That was seeing that again, and Rogue One, I absolutely love it. And it is that jump that not to take the piss, like Saw Gerrera's like bald, then he's got hair, and it's that what happened in those years. You can assume that he trained it, but you kind of want to see it. You want to see more of what they did, what they got up to, and I think Saw Gerrera is a fascinating character that he's popped up in Bad Batch already. He's been in Rebels, he's been in Clone Wars, he's been in Rogue One. He's got quite a legacy of jumping across media. He's been in the bloody Fallen Order game as well. I think he's a very interesting character. I think Disney really enjoy playing with, and I think he's someone that if he would pop up again, if Forrest Whitaker doesn't do it, that's fine. You could probably recast if he's meant to be so much younger. But I want to see more of the pair of them, and also it's building up that Rogue One. We're like, yes, Cassian is completely irrelevant because we know he's going to die in Rogue One, but if Rogue One's going to be like an episode 4 to another, television cinematic universe, we're getting Krennic series, we're getting a Jin and Ever series. Like we need Chirrut Bays, we need to get the whole Rogue One crew to get like basically Rogue One being the Avengers of what was created many years later.
Yes. I love that. That's absolutely awesome. I mean, look, Rogue One is as close as a actual saga. I'll class it as a saga film now. If I watch it, it is that level of amazing. Nothing I think anybody expected to go in that movie and enjoy it the way we did, and it stands right up there. It's still in my top 3 Star Wars movies that I'd go to. It's probably the one I've watched most since the Disney era, certainly, of those movies that they've brought out. Rogue One is my go-to out of pretty much any of them, I would have said. Solo's a great Sunday afternoon movie, but Rogue One is I'll put this on at any time and enjoy the heck out of it. It's absolutely there for this character building on them. Jin is a great character. So is a superb character as well. You've got so much of when he rescued her to see how he trained her up, what he trained her up in, what missions they went on to get that. I just think you're absolutely right. It's just rife for digging into those stories and those characters.
Definitely. I said all I can on that series. Get it done, Disney. Don't disappoint me. Come on.
Everyone comment your Rogue One series, like pre-Rogue One series, what you want to see. We've got 2 down, 3 including Cassian. Keep them coming. My next one, I mean, Chris, I love what you were saying about we're very much set in stone. All these shows have told the story and reinforced that. I've gone for something, yes, it's blatant copying. I've gone for a complete 180 away from all of that. I've come up with an idea for a Star Wars what if. Yes, Disney, we know you're doing it for Marvel this year. And I know everyone's like, what the hell was the point of this? You're just copying them. Well, look at that image there of Maul and Ahsoka. What if Ahsoka took his arm and they went on the crusade to kill Anakin and Emperor together? Or what if Rey took Kylo's arm? Would they have been evil or would they have been good? Who knows? But Star Wars is the most fascinating universe for the what if. And I'm not here to criticize Marvel. I love the MCU. But the problem with the Marvel MCU, in terms of a what if, it's only really small scale stories. It's more like, what would you like to see paired differently? I think Star Wars is the actual series that has that one singular moment could have changed everything. What if Qui-Gon Jinn hadn't have been killed by Darth Maul and took Anakin under his wing? Would Anakin have turned? Would he have gone to the Separatists? It's such an interesting paradox. Yes, it's completely bollocks what if, that's the point of it. But under Lucasfilm animation, I think this could be fascinating. I'm not saying it has to be certain ones, but there are moments in the whole franchise, and I'm not doing that joke, you see him on Twitter and Facebook, like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm not here to rescue you. It's like directed by George Lucas, it's finished. And you get loads of ones like that. This could be a really interesting, if you had an episode per storyline, yes, it might be a bit of a gigantic approach, and everything went really good. But I think as far as an experimental, doesn't even need to look like Clone Wars or Rebels, it could be its own experimental animation. I think that's the one thing that Lucas Animation has done really well, is they've always stood their own, that Clone Wars is its own way, Rebels is as much like Dislike Resistance, that was very much its own animation style. I think they could do something for this. I think in terms of Star Wars, there are so many moments across all of the eras that have really interesting follow-ups, and it's, of course, it's a giant hypothesis, but I think Star Wars more than Marvel has that. I would be far more intrigued to see what happened right now.
Yeah, I think there's always been like a fascinating discussion about that kind of stuff as well. Usually a humorous one, like, oh, what if that happened, or what? And I distinctly remember, like, as a kid, at the library at our school, they had like a very small collection of Star Wars comic books called Star Wars Infinities, which were based fundamentally on that concept. If I'm remembering rightly, I think A New Hope was that what if Luke's torpedoes didn't destroy the Death Star, and he didn't destroy the Death Star at the end of Episode 4. I think 5 was if Luke died on Hoth due to frostbite, and then I think Han Solo becomes the Jedi when he picks up the lightsaber and he goes to train on Dagobah. And my favorite, the one that I read, I didn't read those other two, but Return of the Jedi was what if Leia, as Boushh dropped the thermal detonator in Jabba's palace, completely annihilated the place, and it completely changed the rest of the story. So I'd absolutely love to see something like that. And as you mentioned, like, it could be done in animation, like in whichever style. You could throw different styles in there depending on the episode. I think that would be really fun. And I think it's a really good picture you used as well, because that moment with Ahsoka, I remember watching that and thinking, knowing, you know, in hindsight where the rest of the saga is going to go, thinking, yeah, what if that just happened ever so differently? If only Ahsoka had have mentioned that, or hadn't have said that, or did that thing, the whole franchise would have changed. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to see this. I think it's just fun, and it's the possibilities are literally endless with it. You could do from like the smallest insignificant humorous things to actual major plot elements. I think that'd be really fun.
And I think you're right. I mean, when Chris, we mentioned the Infinities comics, I think my main memory of that is the white Darth Vader suit, which is just awful. Same. I think you get he becomes the good guy and his armor's white at the end.
Love it.
Oh,
love it.
Yeah. So I literally flashed that when this came up. But you're right. It's such a big and vast an area to go through. One line of dialogue, one changed look, one turn this way instead of that way, and you have a completely different Star Wars story to then tell. And it leads all into things like white suited Darth Vader's looking smooth. So yeah, I think it would be an absolutely amazing thing. And I think you're right. I think it would suit best being a mix of some live action, some animated, some done in a different, completely different style of animation. So you'd have 3D and 2D. I think it would be really, really work well for those as well.
Definitely. I've had two more come out. I'm not going to do a whole what if series for us guys, but
that could be another discussion.
In the last 5 minutes,
Top
yeah.
15.
Do you remember the ending of Revenge of the Sith PS2 game? When
yes. Yeah.
If you did it as Anakin, you got the different ending where he never. I was sat there goes, I guess they kind of done it that way as well. And another interesting one has just completely gone off. Oh no, sorry, it'd be a joke comment on what if Order 66 just didn't work? What if they're like, we don't know what it means, and they just carried on as normal? You know, so many questions. But that being said, you know, the conversation for another time. To put it in Star Wars times.
And that leads me on to my number 3. Is that right? Yes, it's me.
Yeah.
So my next one is just actually it's something really simple, and I think it'll be something for the youngsters. I've been watching Disney's vintage stuff recently since they've put on Disney Plus, and going back and watching some of the old Clone Wars when you guys had the watch along that with you, and did that. It was really good. But I've also watched back the Ewoks cartoons of old. And they are awful. But the theme song is amazing still. And I think, you know what? For kids, the Clone Wars is great. And maybe this picture doesn't quite do the thing because they are vicious Ewoks. But I'm thinking just literally like going back, doing a full-on Saturday morning kids TV Ewok style show. And I think it's something that, because a lot of now the story is told for what we've had, they're now building upon what we've got, Clone Wars and obviously Bad Batch now. And it's certainly aimed now at a much older audience than it was when maybe it first came out. I think it's more aimed at people with grey in their beard and stuff who sit up on a Friday morning going, "Ooh, Bad Batch!" Who wasn't going to watch it at first, but now loves it after 2 episodes. So I'd like to just see for young kids who want to have an intro into some of those characters, a really young, just based on that's better than Resistance Ewok show. I think it'd be really fun.
See, I want to go in a completely different territory. Of course, I want to go in a different territory with this show. I agree with the pitch. I would love an Ewoks team. Yeah, I'm going to bring that picture up again. Oh my god! If that isn't the most heavy metal picture I've ever seen.
Have you guys not played Ewok Hunt? Sorry,
no, and I want to.
It is the most terrifying experience on a Star Wars game.
It's like Vietnam.
It literally is. So I remember, when Battlefront 2 was free on PS Plus, all my friends played it for the first time. And I was like, I've never really played Ewok Hunt. They released it when the game was really bad. So when they needed to fix the entire game, like, hey guys, Ewok Hunt's coming. And obviously EA very much died very quickly off that. It's a horror game. There is 1 Ewok spawns, 20 stormtroopers in pitch black. You have to be the Ewok. Every time you kill one, they then spawn as an Ewok, and the last stormtrooper left wins if he can reach to the shuttle. But with the Ewok, you get to do the horn, you get to throw rocks, you get to poke them with a stick. You've got night vision, the stormtroopers don't. It is a terrifying horror game. I'm sorry to divert away, but the moment I saw Ewoks anime series, I knew it was like, oh, this is going to be a really lovely one. But I was like, that photo from Ewok Hunt, that's
so amazing.
If anyone ever tells you that Ewoks are cute, cuddly bears, show them this. Because that's a game changer.
Before we went live, I mentioned to Dave, I said, like, that looks like something out of Mad Max. That looks insane. Like, and I want to see, literally just remake the movie Predator, but just have stormtroopers in place of the main cast. Yeah. And just have the Ewoks picking them off. Like, it'd be horrendous, but it'd be great. And I want to see it. And we know, thanks to episode 9, it's like one of the best things they did in episode 9. We know the Ewoks are still around. They haven't gone anywhere. So, yeah, pick them up. Make a show about them. I'm down.
I want to add as well, in the game, if anyone's played it, comment. When you're a stormtrooper and you hear like 10 of the horns being blown, and you got like surround sound on and they're coming in from everywhere, and it'll be like, the shuttle is landing, reach it 300 meters. If you're the Ewok, it tells you that the shuttle's coming in. It is carnage. But,
I'm sorry, Dave. We've completely shanghaied your pick right now.
I don't want to watch your versions instead. It's fine.
Battlefront 2, $5.99 on the PS Plus store. Everyone go get it and play Ewok Hunt. I'll give you my PSN if you really do.
Oh, I've got to follow that up now, haven't I? It's my pick now, isn't it?
Is there any more to say? Sorry, no, we've jumped. If there's anything more to say about the Ewok cartoon, I'm going to say I am down for it. I am down for it. I will say that. I think they're going to release more. Let's get it going. Warwick Davis will definitely come back.
He'll do it.
Absolutely will. For anything.
It's like the new Anthony Daniels, isn't he? Like, my God. Because he played the greatest cinematic character ever that is Wicket Warwick. Like, yeah. I'm down for it. Anyway, my God, I'm not going to be able to follow this up now. I thought this was one of my best picks. And going after Ewoks, I wish I wasn't going after Ewoks. My number 2 pick is an Anakin and Obi-Wan series. Now, this would be post-episode 1, pre-episode 2. And again, it kind of just going off what I said with the Rogue One pick with Felicity Jones and Forrest Whitaker. It's sort of going into that massive time jump that we had. Kind of mentioned earlier that a lot of the character development from Anakin, really in terms of his training. Now, you see elements where he's not completely refined in Attack of the Clones, and he makes a lot of mistakes, and he's very impulsive still. But so much of that, just even like films like, Rocky, where you've got like a student mentor kind of film, Karate Kid, part of it is the trials of seeing them, go from nothing to becoming a great master. And I'd love to see this. You get more of that dynamic. You get to see Anakin's personality develop from the Jake Lloyd counterpart into, the Hayden Christensen one. This would have to be animated for obvious reasons. I don't want anyone being recast or anything like that. And I think with animation, you'd have more free reign. I think it'd suit animation a lot more. Not that they go on trials, I don't think. I think the trials are sort of at the end of their Jedi training, but you could see them going on different adventures together. And I think it would be an interesting sort of companion piece to the Clone Wars, where you see Obi-Wan and Anakin spending so much time together during the Clone Wars and seeing that that friendship develop between them in that 3-year gap there. But it'd be a very different kind of dynamic, I think, at this point. You'd have to see, even for Obi-Wan as well, sort of stepping up, maybe sort of feeling inadequate compared to, Qui-Gon, who's recently passed away, and he's got to sort of step into those shoes whilst being very young himself. Also having to be a kind of father figure and sort of like brother to Anakin as well. I think there's so much you could go into this, really good character stuff. And again, reinforce that so that when we see them in that first shot of episode 2 where they're in the elevator, they've had history. Let us see them falling into that nest of Gundark. So let's do it. There's so much you could go into this one, and I think even sort of between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, it's one of the most unmined areas of Star Wars. You've got 10 years to play with, and they really haven't dipped back into that yet.
Yeah, I think that would be a fascinating. You could think straight away multi-series animation, do it like Clone Wars, or do it by the same thing. But even in the script, I think they did a comic series where I nabbed that photo from, and I remember it was just like, it was almost like a day in the life of just those guys on a mission with each other. And I was like, you just want to see more from them because it's a fascinating time. And you're right, they've not touched that era. Like you get hints of it in Clone Wars. They have the Cypher Deers arc where it's like, oh, this happened at some point in the last 10 years, but they've never gone into that era. And it's fascinating because you'd imagine if you need to, and not to sort of take it on a side piece to the sort of the overarching world, but the way episode 1 is, there's a very much a republic. They're all united. It's a republic. They all love each other. And episode 2 is like, yeah, these terrorists are everywhere, and it's all part of Count Dooku. Because like, even in the world, there's things to explore there that they haven't, let alone these character acts. And I want to see that. Imagine like a weird Anakin being 8. It was like, how if you look at Ezra in season 1 versus series 5, not just haircuts, but they age him up as every year goes by. I think you could do something similar easily. And everyone wants more Obi-Wan Kenobi. That is an outright fact.
I think it would be really interesting seeing the early years of that development, especially with maybe Kenobi's resentment at Qui-Gon not being there to take Anakin on as he was promised to do, that he's now been lumbered with this kid, so he's no longer, while yes, he's been given a Padawan, which is kind of what he wanted. He said in episode 1 he was ready to take the trials to have a Padawan of his own, but or to be a Jedi Master. I just think it would be that resentment that he's now been lumbered with a kid he didn't really want in the first place. I think it's on that making of series, the gallery in season 1 where Filoni tells that amazing 9-minute story of how it would have worked, where Qui-Gon was this father figure and why why Luke didn't fall or why Anakin did. I think it was just that story has so much to tell. That really does have this, where that brotherly bond then came from, how it became more of a fatherly bond towards the end. I think it would be a wonderful, wonderful addition to the world.
I think it's probably one of my biggest hopes as well for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is that we know we're getting Hayden Christensen, but I would love to see even flashbacks. I would take flashbacks of any kind just to go back to that era. They like to, especially with Marvel, they like to digitally de-age. I'm sure they could do something with it, but even if it's just a scene, like how with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we get like the stuff with Bucky on Wakanda. We just get that one scene. I would just take one scene of it, but any kind of content between those 2 episodes, I would just snap up in an instant.
Definitely. And moving on from that, I'm going to do something very interesting. My number 2 is something which maybe in a couple of years this might be realized via flashbacks, which I hope isn't the case. This is we need a live action Fall of Mandalore series, and obviously this image here is one of the final images from Rebels. Of when Bo-Katan is handed the Darksaber, and she's there to unite the people of Mandalore in their battle against the Empire. And only a couple of years later, Moff Gideon comes out that TIE fighter with the Darksaber in his pocket, knowing he's massacred the Mandalorians. And the big question was, how, when, where? Well, we know where, but it's one of those where we need to see this. And I'm not saying comic. I'm not saying that. A live-action miniseries, 6 to 8 episodes, The Fall of Mandalore. I mean, I think we're going to get flashbacks in The Mandalorian over the next few years. I think Mandalore is going to now be the integral. I think we've had the Child and Mandalorian as their 2-series arc. I think we're going to get a Mandalore arc. But a couple of flashbacks ain't going to compare to a live-action series of them doing it. We have seen via The Mandalorian as well that we can get Katie Sackhoff in character as Bo-Katan. We can get Moff Gideon. He loves playing Moff Gideon. I just want to see what happened, and we don't have the answers yet, and maybe we will soon. But you've got to think, for a miniseries and an all-out war, I think once they've developed it, I'm not saying it's the Better Call Saul to the Breaking Bad, but it could be that if they really wanted to develop something we know bits about, this is it. This is it's Star Wars, how to do a war, Darksaber, Empire. It'd be very cinematic, but I think there's enough there to sort of pick up from where Rebels left off and then demonstrate what happened leading into the Mandalorian, because they all assumed that Moff Gideon was dead. How did they assume that? What had happened? And there are so many interesting stories that they all had to scatter and break up, and I just want to know. And I'm not going to lie, anytime I hear the Darksaber sound effect and see that thing, it is a good Star Wars thing to see. So more Darksaber, please. But I think that miniseries would be absolute concrete if they wanted it.
Yeah, and I think it would have to have a big budget as well, or even like, I know we're not doing films, we're doing specifically Disney Plus, but even that small skirmish in like the last couple of episodes of Clone Wars, that's big scale. That's going to be a lot of budget, and especially if this is going to be the fall of this great place that is Mandalore, you've got to do it justice. I do think we're going to get a lot more of that in Mandalorian season 3, and I do think if it is flashbacks, you are kind of going to be wanting more of that, because it is such a pivotal moment for that place and that province and that kingdom that was Mandalore, and then just to see it fall to ruin, I think that'd be really interesting to see. I think even like if this did sort of eventually translate into a movie, if it's one of these many trilogies that seem to just get pulled out and given to different directors at the moment, I think especially with The Mandalorian and sort of having that iconography and seeing it visualized in live action with people with these helmets, I think that would help it translate even better onto film as well. Just because people have seen it now. Like we had Boba Fett, but now we've got a whole host of characters wearing this armor. So to go back to Mandalore and see all that, then I think that would absolutely be, even if they didn't do a series, I think they could even get a film out of it, or like a trilogy of films maybe.
If we got anything like a live action version of what we got in the last few episodes of the Clone Wars season 7, I just think that's your ultimate goal in how good this could be, to see the battle, to see how the Darksaber was won, why it was taken from Bo-Katan, how easy she lost that. Was it a big battle? Did he kind of sneak it away? Moff Gideon is such a good character, and he's played so well, this prick. It is. And you want more of that. He builds himself up. I mean, that look he gives when he walks in, Mando's got the Darksaber lit, and he's got that smug smile on his face, knowing he can't just give it to Bo-Katan, that has to be won. Just forget about what happened in Rebels, but that it has to be won. It's just, I want to see more of how smug he could be over getting the Darksaber from her. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, sorry if that's wrong. Honestly, all more Gideon. Sorry, I'm. This has been amazing. I know we've still got some more. Before we hand it, we need to bring some other people. So we don't have to do this next one, but this has been an amazing discussion. I keep forgetting that we're meant to move on, so I could talk about the Fall of Mandalore for many more days. But Dave, your penultimate pick.
Number 2 choice would actually stay in the realm of sort of comedy. Now, I know Lucasfilm have kind of stayed away from it. They had this whole Detours series that they've got like multiple series of, like 50 odd episodes locked away in a vault that they didn't want to put out at the time because they didn't want people having a funny view of Star Wars going at the Disney era. But I think it's something they should now start to maybe be open up into again, and sort of let it be out there for a bit of fun. And that would be my second choice would be series Trooper, and it would be very much like almost like an Office style show, set inside the Death Star, set in like on Scarif around the plan, just general day-to-day set around a trooper, a rubbish trooper. I just think it's rife for comedy as well. We don't need this always to be like, it has to be dark and it has to be and the death and all this destruction. There are things that are, at the end of the day, Star Wars always had comedy in it. It's gone for laughs when it could. And I think something like that would be a really good story where you don't have to focus on any main characters, but they could be around what's going on and not having any effect on the story. I just think it's something that would be really nice to bring out another comedy series around Star Wars.
Yeah, and as you said, Star Wars has always been rife for comedy. Since way back, and I think it can do both. You know, when it's serious and you're in that serious headspace for Star Wars, it works well. But it's always fun to poke fun at itself. And the stuff like Robot Chicken's been fantastic, and I know they do sketches on that as well, where you have sort of like the general day-to-day routine of being a stormtrooper. And I would love to see Detours as well. I remember when trailers came out for that, I was really excited to see that. Hopefully they see the light of day at some point. And we even see elements translating into Mandalorian as well, you know, with the Taika Waititi directed episode where you have that whole extended intro of just the 2 troopers shooting the shit, talking about their day-to-day, complaining about the higher-ups, everything you do in like a day-to-day job, right?
Yeah.
And even like I remember bits in Rogue One, and granted it doesn't go into it there, but where you've just got 2 of them talking about a new model of ship that's come out, or where you see that stormtrooper at the beginning on that prison ship and he's just kind of sat and he's like hunched over, like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's probably just making bread for his wife and child back home or something. I love all the stuff like that, where it really humanizes the stormtroopers and you can just make it funny and it's just really down to earth and just, you know, you can connect with them. You understand what they're going through. I'd love to see this. Yeah, just like a spin-off thing on Disney Plus, a weekly show where it's fun. It doesn't have to be over long. Could be, 10, 20 minutes, like those shorts you see. Like the undercover boss thing with Kylo Ren, that kind of tone I think would work really well.
We could get Tamara Morrison just playing like the final clone in The Office that like hasn't been decommissioned. One thing I want to add is, has anyone seen the Simpsons Star Wars short that came out this week?
No,
you know how when we watched the Star Wars Lego special last year, we're like, oh my god, they've let them take the piss out of Star Wars. They did it in the Simpsons this week, and it was okay. It was average. I'm not a big Simpsons fan, but I was like, Disney let them poke fun at Star Wars because they do it quite a bit. They're like at the end, it's like no one ever dies in Star Wars, and they just start taking the piss for the Force ghosts. And I was there like, maybe we are. There are rumors that Star Wars detours might be getting put on Disney Plus at the end of the year. It's been floating around now for a couple of months, and I am starting to wonder: do Disney want to slowly head back into that parody terrain? Because one thing, sort of, obviously, we grew up with it a lot later than a lot of Star Wars fans, but I remember getting that Blu-ray box set back in 2011, and there was a disc like Star Wars parodies. And the fact that George Lucas had approved parodies to go on his actual Star Wars box set was incredible. And I think that was a really big thing probably for him, as not just the creator of it, but as a producer and ultimately a fan of it. Like, he clearly enjoys making it and stuff. He loved people's reactions to it. He loved seeing what they could do, how they could take the piss. And he was more than happy to let that license go to many people and not... If he wanted them shut down, Lucas could always get it shut down, let's be honest. And I think it's time for Disney to start reining. They've done the sequel trilogy now. They've got a big... I always call it the first era is up until Rise of Skywalker. Now we're in very much the Disney Plus era. It's going to be a new era. Sequel trilogy is done. I think why not start bringing that comedy? And it's stuff like that. It's silly, but that's what Star Wars is. It shouldn't be taken so seriously in all forms. And I would love to see it. And can you imagine the amount of like British people they could bring into it as well, just because they're like the villains? It'd be incredible. Ricky Gervais, get him in.
I remember as well, like, right after 9, the first thing that came out, like, major bit of Star Wars content on Disney Plus, really, not counting Mandalorian, was the new holiday special they did, which is, we were surprised how much they were poking fun at even the recent film that came out with the stuff they were saying in the snide little in joke. So I think Disney can do it. I think they could absolutely do something like this. Wow, okay, I'm on my final pick then. Sorry.
Let's just because we're on this one, let's bring up a couple of comments from everyone else that said stuff today. Carl, he would love a Legends tab on Disney Plus app. They could do animated versions of some classic books, like Shadows of the Empire. I think now they've done a vintage tab, they could do probably a lot more if they really wanted to. And also, let's do a quick shout out to Star Wars Biomes. This was incredible. I really hope they're going to do more. It was like, people have like sleeping apps. This would be my equivalent of it. They just need the David Attenborough. JX, I'm not saying it shouldn't be a series, but if you see the Old Republic, I'm going to roll my eyes. Well, maybe you can make a comment after our next 2 picks. Who knows? Maybe one of us picked it, maybe we didn't. I don't know if there was any others that aren't going to give anything away, but just wanted to bring those up for some of people's comments.
Say Old Republic would have to be a film, surely.
Yeah, of course it's got to be a franchise.
Yeah. Okay, on to my final pick then. My number one pick. I had to go for this. This would be an animated series post episode 7 with the original cast of characters. Yeah, right. I'm going to try and not harp on the sequel trilogy too much, but in my opinion, the most fertile ground and the stuff that I connected with the most were all of those flashbacks that we got in the sequel trilogy, where you saw Luke sparring with Leia in episode 9, and we go back to that bit where you see him building his Jedi temple and the students there and everything with Kylo Ren. Those are the scenes that I wanted to see the most. I was always fascinated with what happened there, and with animation you can absolutely cover that and more. This could go on for countless seasons. There's like 30 years to fill. It's not even like just a year. It's not 10 years. It's 3 decades. That's a whole bunch of stuff. This could go on for ages. Mark Hamill, we know, is just like one of the best voice actors in the business. Like, he's hundreds of credits probably on voice work that he's done. I could absolutely see him coming back. Now, I can't see him coming back in a live action perspective. And obviously with this being right after 7, you've got the issue with de-aging and everything. Now, Christ, I don't want a whole series with what they did with Luke at the end of Mandalorian season 2. Love that moment. Really appreciate what they were trying to do. But my God, the more times I go back to that close up just does not hold up. Even the one with Leia in episode 9, I didn't think looked very good. Keep it to animation. We know that Anthony Daniels is going to come back. That's just a given. Like, that's happening. But I just think it would be fascinating. We can see this cast of characters go on more of these adventures and, go into like some of the old legends. You had the Timothy Zahn trilogy of books, which for the longest time was a lot of people's sort of officially, unofficial episode 7, 8, and 9. I'm not saying you have to directly replicate that. I know you can't, because, you know, Thrawn now is in the saga canonically in a completely different way. But I mean, the sky's the limit with the amount of adventures these characters can go on. And again, it can also fill the void of, you know, with say what you want about episode 7, you know, soft reboot and everything like that. Episode 7 wasn't great at world building. It kind of skirted around that and went for a much safer, palatable space outing, like, you know, like an exciting space film, rekindling the magic of what Star Wars was. But there isn't much world building covered between what happened with 6 and 7, other than just like a couple of mentions in an opening crawl. This would give you the chance. You could see the political climate if you wanted to kind of bring elements of like the prequel stuff into the original trilogy more. Now that the New Republic is a thing, sort of dissolving the Empire, there's just, oh my God, I can't even think of the amount of stuff that you could do with this. But I just want to see these characters again in their prime, right after Return of the Jedi. We get to see them, you know, Luke becomes that Jedi that we want to see. And with animation, the sky's the limit. You could go as stylized as you want, as over the top as you want, but just to mine that era there as well, I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think this is one thing a lot of people have seen. I think it could be done in animation if they wanted to. We know they brought in Leia on Resistance. They weren't afraid to recast her for that. They wanted to sort of honor that legacy. And I think this would be the way to do it. I think you could have so many, you know, if you couldn't get any of the main cast back, Hamill, I think maybe could do it. It depends probably on Luke's role. But, you know, if Star Wars really needed to recast them, the Battlefront 2 voices were mainly pretty good. And I think if they're not going to struggle for some of them if you really needed it. But it's a very interesting concept. I think it's one that works. Now we've got The Mandalorian. Now that we've seen Luke pop up, granted it's a couple years after, we know that they are not afraid to bring in a character if they have to. I think that was the key. They were willing to put Luke in a cameo in a season finale in the live-action series. So why would they stop with animation? I think it'd be perfect to do. And I think now we are getting more stories. We know that Thrawn is alive and kicking during the Mando. So we know there are going to be big moments and other things. And these guys are needed in the galaxy at some point. And even as something like this, the Battle of Jakku, it was 1 year after. That was a pretty big thing. So I think the sky is the limit. And I think animation lets you have that boundary of you can do what you want.
And animated Baby Yoda as well. You know, if you do catch up with Mandalorian and you don't want to bring Luke back into the series with Baby Yoda, continue it on in that show. I think, you know, people want more Baby Yoda, right? I want more. Sorry, Grogu. Sorry, old habits. I keep calling Baby Yoda. Yeah.
It's something that's absolutely rife. And I think you're right when you see the outpouring of appreciation and love and pure joy people got from Luke in his prime appearing at the episode 9. It's one of those things that I don't watch a lot of reaction videos on YouTube, but that is one I will go to a lot. I do like a lot of the people who just watch this series. Watching men around my age crying is something it's nice for me. I don't know why, but I like it. But I think it's and I think Hamill's been out there and his appreciation of the outpouring of warmth he got for that after what was probably the reaction he got from episode 8, which, although I think is a great interpretation of Luke and what had happened to him, the fan as a whole didn't kind of take to that, but loved seeing old school Luke Skywalker back. You're right. There's so many stories to tell. There's so much out there. The time span, you could jump around. You could show different parts and different eras. I just think you're right. 30 years are massive. When you look at Clone Wars, had 7 seasons. That's 3 years between movies. Yeah. It's just so expansive. It's there for the taking, and absolutely it would be incredible to see.
Definitely. And I mean, you can't do live action. Like that's just straight out the window. So keep it to animation and get like 10 seasons on the go, more than 10 seasons, as much as you can give me between the two. And again, I think it would bolster episode 7 as well. And I think it definitely needs that. I think Mando's probably going to move into that territory. Try as I might, and I don't want them to go that far into it. I kind of like the nice little Mandalorian world it's created for itself, and I want it to stay there. But I know as the years march on, it's going to have to start getting into that side of the canon. I think it can be done. I think you can definitely sort of embellish episode 7, at least the lead up to that, and you could bring the First Order into it as well. Why not? Because they've got to start up soon, surely.
Definitely. I think there's loads of potential for that. And you said First Order. We know that the I always forget what's called. What do they call the Star Wars cheat code for we're writing them out, but we'll bring them back in a couple of years? They've gone to unknown regions. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Unknown regions is the unofficial. You can come back when you feel like it, and I think you could deliver a lot with that. Final from Chris is my final one. So Chris has gone for post episode 6. Very much what happened before something new. I'm gonna go in reverse. I'm gonna go to before the beginning. And this is, of course, an animated Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn show. Maybe this is a sequel to Chris's Jedi Council series. Who knows? But one thing we need. These guys had a book. And this is the second time I brought up a book that I started. I didn't finish. It was Star Wars today. I picked up in Chicago. I was like, oh my God, we're getting a young Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. I remember reading the first chapter. I was like, I'm phasing out. Yeah, and I can read if people start questioning about it. It's one of them where I don't know if this is insulting or not, so please don't take it the wrong way. To me, Star Wars is a visual media. I've read a lot of Star Wars comics. I've played a lot of games, watched a lot of films, TV, but reading it, it's not hard to read, but it's like I'm reading it as like I see Obi-Wan in my head. I see Qui-Gon Jinn in my head. And I'm like, so just animate it, please. And I know that's really selfish, but, Star Wars to me is very much suited to that visual format more so than reading. And people, sometimes say, yes, you can have audiobooks. It's not the same, is it? Because you're just listening to them, not seeing them. But and also, why wouldn't you want to see this luscious Qui-Gon Jinn hair? One of the greatest Jedi of all time. And young Obi-Wan, I think this series, Qui-Gon training up Obi-Wan, it could be a season, could be 2 seasons, but the show needs to end with them getting a call about there's been a blockade outside the Naboo system and you guys need to go. That would be an ending as good as the original Clone Wars with Grievous nabbing Palpatine, because we know that the whole Star Wars franchise is about to start. I think that'd be incredible to do. And I think going off what you said earlier, we'd learn more about Dooku. Would Obi-Wan have ever interacted with him? Because they make out they don't know each other too well, but would you get Qui-Gon putting his ideologies in Obi-Wan? What we would get the Satine stuff from Mandalore. We could see more of that relationship they had when Obi-Wan, what was his words? If you'd have said it, I'd have left the order. I would love to see that mission where they were protecting her and how those two fell in love and stuff. And I think a young Obi-Wan series would complete it as a whole. We've had him as an apprentice. We'd have had Chris also training Anakin series. We'd have had episode 2 and 3, Clone Wars, the Obi-Wan series, old Obi-Wan, Rebels, everything. We must complete the Kenobi collection with his training. I think would be fascinating. I think there's a lot of stories to be told. And it's just more of those two characters bonding with each other that you want to see Qui-Gon with Obi-Wan together, because their student-master is very much a student-master relationship, but I can imagine Qui-Gon as a master be pretty chilled. I can imagine, like, when Obi-Wan got with Satine, I can imagine Qui-Gon sitting back, probably just like, stroking his beard and thinking, I'll let them, let him choose. And I think if Obi-Wan had gone to Qui-Gon and said, I want to leave the Jedi Order, Qui-Gon wouldn't stand there. So Qui-Gon would probably be like, yeah, let's go, mate. We're done here. And then we can put the shimmy stories to bed and let them be a thing, as everyone always wanted them to be. But no, I think anything with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan is worth watching, but just getting that relationship together, I think would be remarkable.
Yeah, there's a lot of love for Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon tonight on the channel. I'm loving it. Obi-Wan, I mean, easily one of the best. When you look at there's a great tribute video, actually. Oh God, I can't remember the name of the channel, but they did like a video montage of his entire character story. They've done a bunch of ones. I think they did the Chosen one for Anakin. They do like a whole host of them, like these video compilations, and they did one for Obi-Wan, and it shows like, the Clone Wars flashbacks where he talks about Satine and everything. You get this complete package of character. And he's just a tremendously written character. And I'd say probably one of the most consistent as well across the entire saga. So any more Obi-Wan that I can get, as you mentioned, that we're getting the one set between 3 and 4. But yeah, I'd love to sort of go back, and we don't get loads of it. And I think probably this has come through more in sort of like the modern meme generation now, and maybe not so much at the time, but you get like aspects of his kind of quirky, comedic, sarcastic personality to him. Like you were right about one thing, Master, the negotiations were short, and you can see like dynamics there a little bit. You have moments where it feels like Obi-Wan's sort of not getting too big for himself, but he's not afraid to vocalize his opinion, where he says like, why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form? And Qui-Gon's just like puts him in his place and swiftly moves on. And, Obi-Wan's ever obedient as he always is. I would love more content, especially before Phantom Menace as well. Again, another area that in the modern canon, now that they've wiped everything out, they haven't really gone to. I'm not talking about the High Republic or, you know, the Old Republic. Like, that can be its own thing. But specifically with those characters that we know going into it. And I love the idea of ending it with that final shot that would lead into Phantom Menace. Yeah, I'm on like the Phantom Menace hype tonight. I don't know why, because objectively it's probably not a good movie, but I think it's that appreciation for it and those characters now. Yeah, just any more Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon stuff, absolutely.
Absolutely spot on. The filling out of Obi-Wan's story is absolutely something we should get. We're going to get we've got his end point, we've got his sort of his main years when he's in the Clone Wars, we've got the prequel movies. I would love to see how it all started with him, how he came to the Order, something like that. And how he got paired with Qui-Gon Jinn, if it was something that he took straight away, someone he initially wanted, or what he saw in Obi-Wan as to why he wanted him as a Padawan. Because I think it feels to me that Qui-Gon would have a set mind of who he wanted or what kind of Padawan he would take on. I don't think he'd take on just anyone that was given to him. I think he would have fought anybody he wasn't okay with, that he would follow the way that he wanted him to have the teaching. So yeah, give us all of that. Put it straight in my veins. I love it. I love it.
I think Yoda as well, you could bring him into it. Like, I know this was kind of probably retconned with the prequels came out, because I don't think this was part of the intention, but when Obi-Wan says, was I any different when you taught me, referring to Yoda, and then of course you get Phantom Menace and that kind of all goes out the window. So going back to like even his youngling days and bring Yoda into the fold as well, and that dynamic with him, because you get the idea that Obi-Wan was also quite hot-headed when he was younger. Like, he mentions that, similar to how Luke is in that moment in Empire. So yeah, just get it done. Get all of these done. I want to see all these shows. It's going to be really depressing after we finish this stream, knowing that these aren't going to be a thing. Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I mean, mine final choice has been asked for a while as well, more in movie terms, but I don't think that's likely to happen due to its failure at the box office. But yeah, my final choice is a Solo series, a Han Solo series, a continuation, the Han Solo Adventures. I know there's been a big movement of make Solo 2 happen, and I don't think it's going to. We know we're getting a Lando show, which we've not heard much about since the initial announcement of the title, but I would love to see that. Lando is great, but I'd love to see a continuation of that Han Solo character. I mentioned earlier, it's such a perfect, and I don't mean to disrespect when you say it's a Sunday afternoon movie that you could just put on, but it's a nice, warm movie. It does nothing major. It doesn't really take you in any direction. It doesn't spoil the character for you. If you love Han Solo, only the original trilogy, I think he plays it really well as Solo. I kind of don't, when I first saw him, he kind of out for a few seconds, but when you see Aaron Wright, is Aaron Wright?
Aaron Wright, yeah.
After a few scenes, he's Han Solo, and I completely buy him as a young Han Solo. I really enjoyed the movie the more I've seen it. So yeah, I'd really love a continuation of that, him and Chewie's adventures through space before he gets to New Hope. Absolutely bring that on. I just think it could be a wonderful, wonderful series.
Well, somewhere Carl is very, very happy. I wanted to bring this. This was very early on in the stream, actually. I feel the future of the Solo series should be on Disney Plus, definitely. And I think, George, me and you have had this discussion before, whether it's sort of like off camera or on a stream, where we've said that in hindsight, I think if Disney could do things differently, other than Episode 9, the last job I'm going to get in is that Rogue One and Solo would probably be a series on Disney Plus. And I think we've seen that with the shakeup, like due to the poor box office performance of this movie, you know, that we're going to do a Boba Fett standalone film, we're going to do an Obi-Wan standalone film, and they've probably taken the Boba Fett stuff and worked it into what is now the Book of Boba, maybe elements in the Mandalorian as well, and Obi-Wan's getting his own TV series, of course. So I think, you know, Rogue One and even Solo would have benefited probably more from a TV style pacing to the show, definitely, especially with Han Solo going on all these adventures and everything and seeing the rise of his character. It felt like a very awkward film. I'm not going to turn this into a Solo review. I didn't like it overall. I just found it a little bit forgettable. And I guess that kind of goes with that sort of like Sunday morning thing. It didn't like offend me or anything like that. I think it just kind of dipped under the radar for whatever reason. But yeah, and I think now that you look at all the films that have come out, like all 11 feature films that you've got, I guess 12 if you throw the Clone Wars in there as well, it's kind of like this awkward odd one out. You know, Rogue One leads directly into Episode 4, so you get a payoff for that, and Solo's just that one at the moment that really doesn't. And I think the fact that they throw Darth Maul in at the end as well, which, you know, I love the Darth Maul character, and I'm not going to lie, I was geeking out when, you know, 6-year-old me was geeking out when I saw the return of my favorite villain come back on screen. But it does feel weird, and it did feel very fan servicey, and especially because we've more or less got like Darth Maul's complete story, really. We haven't seen his sort of like tutelage under Palpatine, but we've got his death now, so we know that that can't really filter into even Obi-Wan. But they introduced him there, and it's just it's that weird blip now when you look at all the films in sequence now. It's that element of the story that hasn't had a payoff yet, that they haven't gone to. So I think a TV show for sure, and just have Maul as like the main bad guy. And you've got Emilia Clarke as well, who's no stranger to TV, so you could bring her back absolutely. And let's see Maul in live action at least be the villain that we probably all really wanted him to be post episode 1. And I think it could work. I think that maybe with a TV show as well, I'd probably warm to Alden Ehrenreich a little bit more. I just found Solo like just a pointless film, really, because I felt like we got everything from A New Hope, really, for Solo's character. But if you're going to do it, now that you've started, I need conclusion. I need closure to what they've set up, and it always frustrates me when something gets cancelled or stopped prematurely. So, yeah, I think a Disney Plus show is probably the best place for it.
Yeah, I'm echoing up actually. Solo is a fascinating one because I'm going to bring up a comment by Carl, and I'm in a similar-ish set. I'm one of the 5 people who attend the opening midnight screening, so I don't regret it. Fair play to you. This is the only Star Wars film of the Disney era I didn't do a midnight screening for. I remember not being amped at all because it came out so close to Infinity War, and it had so many issues. The first trailer was at the Super Bowl, and it was like, put it in December, Disney. And it was that ridiculous rage. And the fact we sit here and Amber Heard's Aquaman film made over $1 billion, and this made 300 mil. And you got some weird conspiracy theorists that believe Disney intentionally released this at a bad window so they could justify doing TV series. That's the most stupid thing I've ever done into. This was this week, actually. That's why it's in my mind, and I didn't get rid of it. But what I would love of Solo, because I saw it once at the cinema. I went at like 10 a.m. at the cinema I always go to. I took my older sister, and I think it was a bank holiday, which is the only reason she watched it. And I was like, you get that opening 10 minutes. I'm like, and I was like, yeah, it was fine. And as the years have gone by, it's been, 3 years now? I really enjoyed this film. I saw it when I got it on Blu-ray later that year. I was like, this film's actually half decent, like fair play. And I saw it on the flight to Chicago. I was like, I'm really starting to enjoy Solo now. And I saw it again last year when I did a rewatch with the box set, and I was kind of like, Solo deserves better. When I say better, I mean TV. Not because I think if you know the origins that, when Disney bought Star Wars, the reason they did Rogue One first and Solo was that they were the screenplays that had already been developed. So you had John Knoll pitch Rogue One to Lucas many years ago, and that story was very much going to be a part of the Star Wars live action series Lucas wanted to do. And that series also had Han Solo stories, which were, of course, going to be written by Kasdan, who'd be returning, which was a big sell at the time as well, that Kasdan's going to be writing Solo with his son. And it's a really fascinating one because I think as the years have gone by, I think this is the Star Wars one that a lot of people have peeled more towards. And it's really annoying because it doesn't have that ending. And you've got Woody Harrelson in it, and you've got so many other things. Like even Enfys Nest I enjoy, and there are issues in it. Do not get me wrong, there are issues. But the fact that Donald Glover's getting a series from it, which is extraordinary, because he was superb as Lando. But Eunice Time has been great as Chewbacca, and I felt their bond. I really enjoyed it. And I think Solo struggles because it's so episodic, and it's a film. You can imagine, like, episode 1 was escaping there. Like, episode 2 was him getting recruited. Episode 3 was the train sequence. Episode 4 was this. And it's so episodic, yet it's 2 hours long. I think the future would be... I think I would bet all my money on him popping up in the Lando series, cameo or whatnot. There's no way you're going to get a Lando series without Solo popping up. But as far as the Disney Plus series goes, to me, this is one of the most important ones. This is the ones they could greenlight it tomorrow, and everyone's already got the cast confirmed. And even if they didn't want to do more, if they wanted to save more for other stories and other ideas, you could still have his... I always forget the name of his villain club.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's already been a gangster group before. I always get a mix of something, but as a side piece, there are stories to tell. It's 10 years for episode 4. They teased Jabba the Hutt, didn't they? Of course they did. Big time dealer, and I'm here for it. I'd like to see more adventures, and I think as far as the Disney Plus show goes, I think I'm really intrigued by Cassian, because at the start of Rogue One, he's really badly written. The whole, killing that guy in the back for no reason, being very strange and all that stuff. I was like, Cassian, I'd like to see more of him, just because I didn't like him at the start of Rogue One. I like to see them maybe have a bit better, and I think we're going to get that. There's a couple of set photos leaked from filming in Blackpool of all places, which is incredible. But Solo 2, a series, I'm down for it. And I think also, again, that technology wouldn't be that expensive. They could do it easier on a TV budget. And Chris, going back to what you said, me and you have had this discussion loads. As much as I love Rogue One, imagine an 8-hour Rogue One series.
Mm.
And I see the same with Solo, and I'm here for it. I know we've spoken a lot about Solo, but definitely. And I reckon this is one they would announce as well.
See, I'm not sure if they would. Just quickly bringing up Carl's comment there. I know you just mentioned it, but they could tie in the Hutts. I remember an article, whether it was confirmed, whether it wasn't. I swear they were working on puppets. They had like a whole Hutt family. I remember reading that.
Episode 7 rumor. Do you remember there was an episode 7 rumor years ago? Like, oh, Leia is friends with all the Hutts and trying to regain her trust. And I was like, at the time, and you can smell bullshit. That was like the biggest one. Like, yes, they're going to put the entire Hutt clan in episode 7. Maybe in 9, but not 7.
I'll say, well, we wouldn't get Zero the Hutt, would we? Because I think, thankfully, he shuffles off his mortal coil during Clone Wars, so we don't have to.
You never know in episode 9 the Hutts speak.
Oh,
could you imagine, like,
what a
the ending of the episode? Well. And you get like what noises? It's like, oh no, and like, oh
he's
my
like
God.
Droopy the dog. I can't do the
that
voice.
New Orleans accent, yeah.
It's got like Clone Wars Obi-Wan, like somehow Zero the Hutt.
Oh my God. We're going to end on Zero. By end on that note. No, we can't.
Absolutely.
We're going to end it. If after the Solo discussion is done, I've got to bring up a comment.
That's cool.
Someone else.
I was going to say, like, I think that you mentioned about Lando, and Carl mentioned about the casting thing. I keep forgetting that Lando's happening. Now I remember the logo now when they sort of announced them all, but I think if they're going to do it, they're going to put him into there because I think that they're going to look at financial models. Disney have always done that. They're going to keep cranking out what sells, and when something stops selling, they're just going to put a nail in it. And seeing how Solo performed, you think of all the money that they would have like just bled away on reshoots as well, basically reshooting the whole film, cast salaries, getting them all back again, the effects work, and then the fact that it didn't deliver and it made like was it 300 bang on the dot or just under, however much it was. It made a huge loss, and I don't know if they would throw even more money into something they think isn't going to reap the benefits of it. So I think it's a shame, because I would like to see Alden get another shot at the Han Solo character, because it didn't really feel like Han Solo. I think a lot of people went into it expecting to see Han Solo right off the bat, and you really don't get him until the final scene of the film. It felt like the Ridley Scott Robin Hood film. You go to see a Robin Hood film and you don't get that until like the last few seconds of the film. But I just don't think you're going to have that Solo name again. I think they're going to want to distance themselves as much, and if they are going to tie up that story, they'll sort of like merge it with something else. And I think Lando's probably, I would like to see them do a standalone Solo thing and continue with him, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'd merge it with Lando if they're going to do anything with it.
I could, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it'll be interesting. It's right. You get to that end point of Solo when he kills Woody Harrelson, and you kind of like, hand shot first, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it is that moment where he has become a Woody Harrelson. Even says it as a passing comment, like, he did Battle Kid, and I know we can't get more Woody Harrelson, but he was unbelievable in that role, and maybe we'll get him in more Star Wars. Who knows? Maybe there could be another Star Wars shows we need discussion in a couple of years when they greenlight all of these. Really quick by JX. I like to see an universe cooking show. I agree. Therefore, my bonus
whip. There is one, isn't there?
Well, I'm having Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, episode 1, Dex's Diner. No more discussion needed.
Yes.
I mean, you see them shows and there's like bugs out the back. Like, this is the guy like pulling his trousers up and then hugging customers. Like, we'll be in a post-corona world by then. But can you imagine Gordon Ramsay let loose in that diner? Because it looked very clean. But I bet the food isn't, and the hygiene.
It ain't winning any Michelin stars anytime soon, is it? I'm sure. But okay, yeah, let's end it on Dexter Jetster. That's totally cool with me. So that'll do it for our discussion on the top Star Wars shows we want to see on Disney Plus. This has been amazing. It's always great talking Star Wars on the channel when we get an excuse to do it. And now we want to pass over to you guys as well. We've already had some suggestions thrown out, but if you have any more, and really with Star Wars, the sky's the limit with the show ideas, you could come out. Let us know some more of your ideas, and be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow us on our social medias as well. We've got Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, we're on Letterboxd at Cinema Savvy, and we've got the TeePublic link in the description down below, with hopefully a new design at some point on its way. There's a little clue there for you. What do we have else coming out? We have Bond weekly on Tuesday. We'll be back with Thunderball at 8 p.m. GMT. Sorry, BST. We're not in GMT, are we? BST. And I'd like to say we have some other stuff. We do have a lot of other stuff planned and scheduled, and we have the release of films again. Cinemas will be opening very, very soon, so the content's just going to come thick and fast. At the moment, you know, we're just kind of doing what we can. Maybe, I mean, if you like these list ideas that we do, discussion videos, if you want to see more of them, let us know. And, you know, we have plenty of ideas for ones that we can throw out there. It's always a blast to do these videos. And once again, great having you back on the show, Dave, to help us talk about Star Wars.
Thank you very much for having me.
Always a pleasure to talk Star Wars with you, my friend. And I think, is that everything? Have we announced everything? I think that's everything. Oh, as George is staring into the void.
It did that.
Oh, what a time! What a time!
I know. Yeah, as we said, we've got Bond. Maybe there'll be discussion next week on some cinema stuff. Who knows? We'll give you updated. As Chris said, hit those socials, get us on there. But it's a very interesting period. I'm very excited for cinemas to open. I won't be watching Spiral though, but I know Chris will be because I'm like 100 Saw films behind at the rate they're going at. They're just. Don't they always say it's the final Saw film? And then like 3 more come out.
Yeah, I think Saw the final chapter was 2 films ago now.
Like, so. You know, you can picture like, is it Lance Henriksen that plays him? It's like somehow Jigsaw has returned to end it perfectly. But no, I'm very excited. But a lot of things coming up. As I said, Bond this Tuesday. I really want to scream Thunderball like Tom Jones is in the theme, but I'm not that good. So I'm going to pass out with come back for this Tuesday one. It's been an amazing discussion. Everyone commented, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Plenty more Star Wars on the way, and maybe by the time Book of Boba comes out, there'll be a little intro. Who knows? But thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.
See you guys.